One sector which has suffered significant losses over the last 3 years is the hospitality industry. COVID-19 and load shedding have delivered devastating blows to the sector. Now the question is, can businesses survive increased electricity prices and load shedding at the very same time? For more on this, I'm joined by Grace Harding, Ocean Basket CEO. Grace, very good afternoon. I suppose that first question to pose before you, can you survive these 18.65% increase?
We're always going to survive. I mean, we've survived all sorts of things. I just want to outline the real impact. So electricity is anything from 30,000 Rand up per restaurant. And obviously there's restaurants of different sizes. When there's load shedding, the hours that the electricity is not consumed is not deducted. So the electricity price is that 40,000 or 50 or whatever. Then they're going to add 18% to that. On top of that, we've got to add about 25,000 Rand a month for diesel and the maintaining of a generator. The ultimate impact is going to be where? Because it's not easy to say to the landlord, gee whiz, we're struggling. It's going to reduce the ability to employ people. So to summarize it, what is the impact? It's the impact of a minimum of 2 jobs being lost per restaurant, and South Africa has approximately 10,000 formal restaurants. That excludes taverns and informal places like that. So you can bet on at least 20,000 job losses just out of restaurants. Never mind hotels, guest houses, all of that stuff. So that's the answer.
Difficult indeed. Now, you've said electricity is fixed. Is there any way of working around this? Because obviously, as far as I'm concerned, it would seem unjustifiable that you are paying for a service that is not being rendered, firstly, and secondly, you have to pay almost 20% on top of that, and you're only getting 25%, if at all, of the expected service, outside of the fact that you are having to incur the expense of running a generator for several hours a day.
Yeah, so even in our homes, if you truly do a little Excel spreadsheet and look at the number of hours you have electricity, which is now a home, I think my home's being cut about 8 to 10 hours a day. And if I look at the tracking of the electricity cost, it has not changed at all. And load shedding started a little bit in 2008. So the same with a restaurant or any business. So that we're going to be paying over the next 2 years about 35% more on top of already a high price for electricity that we don't always receive, to spend money on diesel, which will probably run out one day, and then have fewer people. So I think never mind the electricity problem, but the knock-on effect, and we spoke about this so much during COVID, the value chain of impact is just so massive.
Well, Grace, let's talk a little bit about supplies. You know, you talked a few weeks ago, it was reported that KFC was unable to provide certain aspects of its business, primarily fried chicken, because it wasn't available. Now, is there likely to be an impact on some of the supplies that you need, such as fish and vegetables and so on, in the restaurant?
So it wouldn't affect fish or vegetables, and I mean, our fish doesn't come pre-coated or anything. But if you look at our chips, for example, we already are struggling with a chip that hasn't got the same coating that we like and that we are used to. We call it bulletproof because you don't have to use it immediately. It can sit for about 5 minutes. And that is because the manufacturers have insufficient electricity to do the additional processing. So I can completely see why KFC have a problem, and any central kitchen is going to have a problem. Manufacturers, how are they going to keep their businesses open? People who are manufacturing products in South Africa, even nappies, for example, anything, they can't run their factories. So that means they're going to shut them down, retrench people, and import from China. So just to analyze that whole knock-on effect, it will affect the product, absolutely. Anything that needs a factory, anything that needs processing, it definitely is going to affect it. And then, of course, it's affected because the consumer's being knocked at home, so she has less money to eat out. So It feels worse than COVID, but I don't know. I'm a bit scared of COVID, but it's feeling a little bit crazier.
So how do you remain profitable, I suppose, is the next question.
I think you've got to adapt to the environment in which you're in. So it's about the approach to say this is the environment. There's nothing we can do about it. I heard at the end of an interview before I came on that someone said, well, maybe it's time for us to get to the streets. It is interesting how we don't take to the streets, isn't it? We just accept it and lie down. But we just have to make a plan. The thing that becomes sad is there is going to be someone who's going to suffer. So we have to make a plan and say, right, well, if we can't get a coated chip, I mean, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with KFC? One day we're not going to serve chips. You can't really buy fresh potatoes and chop them all day. So how do we do it? It's complex. We work on it day in and day out with a lot of determination, a focus on people, and maybe a few glasses of wine.
Well, the one thing that you talked about was letting staff go. And my question is, what is the implication of that on service? Because invariably, you have no choice but to let go of some staff in order to remain viable. But the expectation when I walk into an Ocean Basket is that the turnaround is the 10, 15 minutes or whatever normally it is.
I guess we're going to have to look at the size of the restaurants. We may have to have fewer tables. That's going to impact on the money that an owner can make. Simplifying the menu, which is what all of us did during COVID, the simplification of the menu. So the business will adapt. It always does. But what is the impact of that? And is it really necessary to adapt to something that creates so much mayhem and human damage?
Now, you talked, or you mentioned walking or taking to the streets, as a previous speaker has said. My question is around what business is doing to deal with these issues. Are you taking it lying down? Are there serious conversations that business is having with government?
You know, I wish we could. Maybe I don't know how to. Through the Restaurant Collective, which we established during COVID, we are reaching out to the various DGs. We are focusing at the moment on all the ZEP, Zimbabwe, the permits and things like that. When it comes to this, to tell you the honest truth, I don't really know where to start. So as a restaurant industry, the first challenge we have is to get noticed, because it's always been an industry that's been quite entrepreneurial, quite under the radar. So there's a lot we have to do and take responsibility for, so that we are seen and we are heard. But certainly, if we can get together with Business South Africa or whoever and say, let's get together, I would definitely participate and be part of it. I don't know where to start. Who do you go to? Who do you phone? 0800 who? You know, I don't know. I don't know. I feel a little bit like I'm not sure, but boy, oh boy, I'm there. So anyone listening, let's go.
Yeah. And another challenge which you've raised, obviously, is those Zimbabwe exemption permits, which are scheduled to expire sometime in June of this year. Now, how many of your staff, or as a collective in the hotel sector, are on those Zimbabwe exemption permits? And is it likely to impact the restaurant business or the hospitality business in a significant manner?
Well, the first thing is people all over the world, if they are not born in the country, have to work with valid permits. So we absolutely agree with that, because how else can you run a country? So the work that we've got to do now is take responsibility and coach restaurant owners beyond Ocean Basket with the Restaurant Collective to have the proper paperwork in place. Obtaining the paperwork is a challenge because there is so much inefficiency and crumbling systems. So this is now taking up time. A lot of these people have been allowed into the country, and it's not the restaurant industry's responsibility to kick them out. Do we want them to be legal? Yes. And if they're not, they shouldn't be working in the restaurant. So it's just all this time-consuming thing of, you must have this, so we must do that. I'd love us to shift from, we have a problem, let's work together to make sure people are legally here, just fully employed, earning the right salary, being treated the right way. Government and business need to work together. It cannot be an impositional relationship. It's got to be an integrated, collaborative relationship. And we can help, and we want to help. Labor costs per hour are supposed to be going up in March. So someone's deciding, oh, well, we'll just put up the hourly wage. That doesn't work. You can't just tell us that, because what's going to happen? We're going to increase the hourly wage. We're going to employ fewer people. We have to buy diesel. We then have to pay more electricity, blah, 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 blah. And I sound like a nagging woman. But the biggest message to government, and I don't know if any of those people ever watch your show, is let's get in a room, guys, because we all want this country to work, all of us.
We'll expect a call from government because they do watch all our shows. Grace, appreciate your time this afternoon. Great